Aloha, good morning. It's Robert Stellick with Blue Planet Surf, and welcome to my live show here at 7 a.m. in Hawaii. I got my coffee, still getting started, but it's great to see that some people are already watching. So Tyler Hollowell from Sanibel, Florida, and Schmello from Zurich, welcome to the Blue Planet live show. So on this live show every Wednesday morning at 7, I'm going to just kind of go over some news, what's new here at Blue Planet. I'm going to answer some questions over the last week from the YouTube channel, just like comments and questions from viewers, and then also kind of respond to the live chat on the live show. And if there's any questions, I'll go into that as well. So that's kind of the format of the show. And if you've been watching the Blue Planet Surf YouTube channel, you've noticed that over the last month of June, we've been posting a video every single day. So that's definitely been quite the challenge. And I've been doing a lot of it, but also Tyler, one of our staff members, Tyler, has been posting those video contests. So every single day we have a video of the day. We've been getting lots of submissions. So thank you everyone for those submissions. Had a lot of cool videos submitted by viewers like you. So, and that contest is going to go on for one more month. So all the way to the end of July, we're going to keep posting a video of the day. And then at the end of July, we're going to decide on the top 10. And then we're going to have a show with the top 10 and decide on the winner of the $2,000 prize. And that's going to be on August 14th. So I hope some of you can join us for that. And Tyler's a 5%er. Awesome. Yeah. So I always joke that those long form interviews on the Blue Planet show, only about 5% of the people are still watching at the end. And probably the guys that watch this live show are also part of those 5%ers. So cool. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me again. And so I wanted to say a special thank you to Tyler for posting those the videos of the day every day. And I'm definitely this 30-day challenge was definitely pretty hard to post a video every single day. You know, the shooting part is kind of the fun part, but then sitting down and editing it and posting it and everything that's involved with posting it, it's quite time consuming. So every day I've been spending a lot of time on the computer here and posting videos, and it's been fun, and we had a lot of good videos, and overall definitely our viewership has gone up, so it's definitely leveled up, but at the same time we're getting less views per video. So, and I mean, to me it's always more important to focus on the quality versus quantity. So I still wanted to put out good videos, which I think all the videos we put out were still good quality, but obviously if you have more time to do it right, then and you're not as rushed, then it should result in better videos. So I'm going to go back to our regular scheduled once a week video, but I'll keep doing this live show every Wednesday. So that'll be basically 2 Blue Planet Surf videos, and for the next month we'll still have those daily videos every single day. So other things is in July I'm doing 2 online training classes. One is the AccesSurf. So AccesSurf is a local nonprofit, and we're training the volunteers to, just be able to assist better. It's basically an organization that helps people with disabilities to get in the water, and it's a great cause, and I'm happy to support it, and any volunteers that help with their events. So they haven't had events, since early 2020 due to the pandemic, but they're going to start having events again soon. So we're going to train everyone. Tyler Hollowell says, my connection like last week is terrible. I can't hear or see anything live. Oh, that's a bummer. Is anybody else able to see? I see there's like 8 people watching live right now. So maybe give me a little shout out if you can hear and see well. I have exactly the same setup here as I had last week. Got a pretty good microphone, and I got a nice new camera. It's like a Sony camera 4K. So I've been trying to improve my technology on this end, but I mean, it could also depend on your connection. Oh, Travis Glover, what's up, man? That's good. And Travis, an old friend of mine, we used to live on Maui together back in the day. And Travis Glover is actually the one who started Maui Fin Company, which is now still a big brand. But good to see you, Travis. And Meshmel is saying all good Swiss reliability. Yep. So I think if you have a good internet connection, you should be able to get a decent connection here live. So, but yeah, cool to have Travis in the house. What are you up to, Travis? Still kiting? Have you tried wing foiling? Says loving the content. That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Let's see what else. I guess. Oh, and then the other thing is the PSUPA training class. So I'm doing a professional stand-up paddle instructor training class. So if any online training, so anyone in the world can join that portion of the class. And then, but if you want to get fully certified, you also have to do a 1-day, 6-hour in-person session where we go, over how to teach a lesson and all those things in person on the water. So if you can do both, you get fully certified. If you just want to do the online training, it's still really helpful. You just don't get certified if you only do the theoretical part. So Travis says, yeah, all good here. I'm all about the wing foiling now. Yeah, it's kind of once you get that feel of flying over the water, it's hard to go back to like chattering over the surface, right? Yeah. Foiling has definitely opened up a lot, and then the wing just makes it so easy to stay on foil for a long time. So definitely a cool, fun sport. All right, so I'm gonna try to get into some questions here that from the last week that I wanted to answer on the show. Sometimes it's easier to answer it in person instead of going, trying to write long things by text and so on. And actually, first of all, let me talk about this one comment here. Joe Skill is saying, Robert, are you allowed to surf kayak in Waikiki without getting hassled? If so, would it be cool if you did a video of surfing the kayak in Waikiki? And so and just some background, Joe has been commenting a lot, and he's actually paraplegic in a wheelchair, so he can't stand up surf, but he likes to surf in a sit-down kayak. And obviously, if you have a handicap like that, if you can't stand up and surf, then of course you can use a kayak in the surf. There's no question. And I think you'll find, if you're respectful and if you don't go to the super crowded peaks in Waikiki, most of the locals are actually super friendly. As long as you kind of approach it with a good attitude and you smile and you're not greedy and take all the best waves. Usually the locals here, I would say, are pretty welcoming. And Joe, yes, if you want to come to Waikiki and shoot a video about kayak surfing, that's definitely something I would do with you and head out there with you. Should be fun. And and there's also a competition here for every year during the Dukes Fest. There's a competition, and AccesSurf is involved in that as well. It's basically for handicap surfers, a competition. So that might be fun to come during that. I don't think it's happening this summer, but next summer I'm sure they'll have it again during the Dukes Fest. So maybe try to look that up, and also maybe get in touch with AccesSurf. They have some great events, and they have volunteers that are happy to help people with disabilities get into the surf. So that's a great opportunity for you. And Travis, all about the wing foiling. Yeah. So yeah. And let's see. The other question was on the inflatable stand-up paddle boards. I keep getting questions about inflatables, and we have that one long video I made with the pros and cons of inflatables. And to me, the biggest negative side about inflatable stand-up paddle boards, and I know there's been some improvements in technology, but basically the material, the PVC and the glue just starts deteriorating, especially in a hot climate like we have here in Hawaii in the sun and the heat. It starts deteriorating, and it's rare to see boards here in Hawaii, inflatables that last more than about 5 years, And by then, usually the warranty is expired, and customers are very unhappy because once the seam pops, rips, and it's very difficult to repair. It's like basically, even if you're able to have it repaired professionally with special type of glue. It takes like a 2-part glue that comes from Australia or something that's very difficult to glue. And then even then it tends to then split somewhere else. So, once the glue deteriorates to a certain level, it'll just kind of start coming apart everywhere. And so because of that, we stopped selling inflatables completely here at Blue Planet. And I know some companies are using the heat welding technology, which is supposed to hold up better over time. So there might be new technologies that I haven't experienced yet. But just in my experience, inflatables is, it's not just about the performance and so on. Of course, they also have more flex, and you have to pump them up, and they're just not as good in the surf. But I would say, they are a great tool to get into stand-up paddling, and they're easy to transport, easy to store. And then, of course, on flat water, just cruising around, the performance-wise, they're pretty comparable to a hardboard. But those are kind of the pros. But then just because the cons, the fact that they don't last very long is why we don't sell them anymore. So, but somebody else asked, what about modular boards? What is your opinion on those? I've seen videos on Easy Eddy paddle boards. So that's a good question. And I actually haven't tried those Easy Eddy boards, but basically those are like blow molded boards that have they basically come in 3 pieces. So you can take them apart, put them in your trunk of your car and so on. And then they hook together with, they have basically 3 pieces, and they have some joints, and they click together. And actually, those look pretty decent. I mean, if you don't have the option of putting a board on top of your car, or or you can't store the length of the board, that could be an option. But I mean, obviously, I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure that the joints, there's going to be a certain amount of flex in the joints. So you have 2 joints where there's going to be a little bit of flex anyways. And then also the material is, I think it's blow molded plastic. So it's going to be very durable, but not necessarily the lightest and strongest material. So, weight to strength is pretty important too. So if you're just looking for something for cruising, getting into it, it's probably fine for that. But if you want something that has more performance, then, I mean, there are also high performance 2-part boards with like carbon stringers inside and so on. So that system is probably better. Sonova makes like race boards that come apart, and those seem to be very well made. So that I would actually recommend for if someone wants to travel by airplane. They're quite costly, but that might be a good option for someone for traveling and so on. So there are good systems for taking apart, but I think the Easy Eddy boards are not like, it's an entry-level board. It's not a high-performance board. So Meshmellow says, would 2 US box windsurfing fins allow foil-less winging? I want to teach my kids in shallow water how to control the wing. I would avoid the strap-on fins like long subs. Okay, yeah, so 2 US box windsurfing fins allow finless winging. So I guess what you're saying is you have a foil board, and instead of putting a foil on, you want to use those plate mounts to put regular fins in there. So basically maybe put 2 fins on the bottom of a foil board and use it as a foilless board. And I think, yeah, that's definitely possible. And I've had customers who've done that just to get used to the handling of the board and the wing and so on. You can just put regular fins. You have some center fins, you can just put those in the boxes and use it that way. I actually haven't tried it. And the problem with having fins in the very back of the board is that you have to put your weight pretty far back to keep the board from drifting sideways. If you're standing more in the center of the board where the volume, the volume is centered more in the middle. So it's hard to put enough pressure on the fins to make the board go upwind. So you end up kind of drifting downwind pretty quickly, is from what I've seen. So without a center dagger board, you tend to drift quite a bit. So then what I've heard people do actually is, I heard somebody put just the mast, like put the foil on the board, but take the front wing off. So it's just the mast with the fuselage and maybe the tail wing. So the mast itself acts kind of like a dagger board and gives you more upwind ability. able to stay more upwind because you can kind of push against that mast to stay upwind. So that might be an option to try. Just put the foil on without the front wing so you can't lift off, but you still have the whole mast to kind of go upwind a little bit. Yeah. So that's definitely worth a try. Okay, let's see. I think I have one more question I was gonna go over from viewers. Yeah, so I made a video about how to carry the foil board. So there's like, 4 different ways I showed how to carry a foil board. And Jake Dog asked, how do you get through the surf? And that's a good question. And here in Hawaii, most of our breaks are point breaks, so the waves break pretty far outside, and then by the time they get to the beach, they're pretty much dissipated mostly. So we just get like a small shore break in most places, small waves breaking on the sand, and it's pretty easy to get through those. But I know in some places like in California or in Florida, on a day with big swell, and sometimes the waves can be very close together too, and they just kind of roll in over shallow sand. And you have to walk out quite far before it's deep enough to turn your foil over. So that's kind of a good question. How do you get through basically rolling shore break? Now, one thing, and you have you have the foil and the wing, so it's definitely a challenging thing to do. And to be honest, I haven't really done that in that kind of those kind of conditions. We usually just have a small shore break, and I just plop everything down. Of course, you have to hold the wing downwind on the downwind side so it can flag out on the downwind side. And then the other hand, on the upwind side, you have the foil, and you have the foil sticking up because it's not deep enough to turn the board over with the foil down. So the risk is that the wind is going to blow the foil onto your wing. So if the foil gets blown over and hits your wing, you're going to have holes in your wing pretty much. The foil will just puncture the wing pretty easily. So you have to make sure you hold on to that foil and keep it from coming down onto the wing, obviously. So and it can be kind of challenging, and depending how deep the water is, you might be able to hold the top of the foil like by the fuselage. And I like to kind of drag it backwards, so that way if a big wave hits you or something, you could let go and the foil is going to stay behind you or get pushed behind you. You definitely don't want to have the foil in front of you, where if a wave comes, the foil comes at you. So keep the foil away on one side, and then hold the wing on the other side. If it's windy, it's going to kind of get pulled downwind anyways. And then just carefully kind of push through the shallower water. And then I guess once you're deep enough to turn the board around, then you definitely want to do that. And then you can either prone paddle the board out further till you get past the breaking waves, or then if it's calm enough, just get up and start winging right away. So, but probably people like Travis Glover in Florida would have more experience with those kind of conditions. If there's like rolling waves, I don't know, maybe let us know if you have any other special techniques for doing that. But yeah, basically just make sure you keep the foil and the wing apart. They don't mix well together. Another thing I wanted to say is, like on the beach, a lot of times I see people attaching their wing, their leash to like the fuselage of the board that's sticking upside down, kind of at a higher point. And I always tell people when you attach your wing by the leash, always try to make sure it's like too low to the ground. Basically, the leash should hold the leading edge down to the ground. And the closer you can have the leash to the leading edge, the more it's going to hold that wing down and keep it from lifting up from the wing. So if you have a leash that's attached to your fuselage, then it's like holding the wing up. So if there's a gust of wind, that the wing is going to lift up and it's going to pull, and then that the foil can fall over. And then if the wing comes back down at the same time, you got the foil on the wing again. So it's not a good idea to attach your leash to the fuselage. So what I do is I lay the board sideways, so the board and the foil is here up on the upwind side, and then I bring the leash underneath the board and wrap it around the mast. So the leash is being held down by the board, and the leading edge is right behind the board, so it's in the wind shadow of the board, and it's being held down. So very unlikely for that wing to lift off and cause any problems. Okay, let me go over the chat here. Meshmel is saying the hexa traction on the bottom of the board to paddle foil up was a great tip from your channel. So yeah, that was Daniel on his prone board. He has hexa traction, which is a really good way to have some traction on the bottom of your board when you're paddling upside down, especially a small, tiny board tends to want to drift around a lot. So having that hexa traction will keep it in place. Definitely a good tip. And then also some people have used wax. It's putting a little bit of wax on the bottom of the board, just anything to keep that board from slipping out from under you. And then John says, how long of a leash would you recommend for foil surfing? So that's a good question. I mean, you definitely always want to have a leash that's long enough so that if you have to bail forward, like jump off the board forward, it doesn't stop you from basically escaping the board and the board hitting you. Like I've actually early on, I made the mistake to try to, like when my foil board was going over a wave, I was stand-up foil surfing and going out, and the wave was kind of too big. So I thought I would jump forward, but when you come up on white water, the foil can lift up so fast. And as I was jumping, the board shot up, the nose of the board shot up and hit me in the ribs pretty hard. And then basically I fell on the board. And that wasn't really because the leash was too short, but it was just kind of, I didn't time it right. But that's something you want to be aware of, that white water will lift up your board really fast. And if you jump off of it, it'll just shoot up at you. So don't try to jump forward over the nose. Better to jump sideways or whatever you got to do, but always definitely keep out of the way of the foil. So one thing I would say, if you're foiling in a place with other surfers, you don't want a super long leash. We make that retracting leash belt, which goes out 10 feet, and then it has a shock cord that stretches to another 5 feet or so. So you got a total of 15 feet where the board basically can go up to 15 feet away from you. And that's really nice for wing foiling in an uncrowded spot, because, if you get hit by a wave, the board will go way away from you and the wing stays fairly close. So you got the board and the wing separate. And then you can kind of collect the wing back and the board kind of slowly reels back to you. And then when you're ready, you just grab the board, and the shock cord kind of keeps it away from you so it doesn't hit you while you're doing stuff with the wing. But the retracting leash is super good in the waves. I mean, I highly recommend that. But if you don't want to get that, like a leash that's a little bit longer than the board is the very least. And a lot of guys here like to use straight leashes just because the coil leashes will just, if you're using them in waves, they get all tangled up and stretched out, and then they're kind of like an old telephone wire that gets all tangled up, and then you got a really short leash. All of a sudden, if it's tangled up and you can't untangle it quickly, then the board is like right on next to you and you can't get away from it. So it can actually be kind of dangerous too. So coil leashes are not great in the waves. They're pretty good in flat water. As long as they don't get overstretched, they work pretty well. But in the waves, not really. Travis Glover, it's tough in the shore break. Hopefully we can come up with some design that makes it easier. I've got some ideas, all bad. Okay, so I think, ideas, like I had that interview with Mark Rappahorst, and I really liked how he said, like, he tries a lot of things and like 80% of them are just bad ideas and they fail. So, but without trying, you're not going to know if they're good or if the idea is good or not. And a lot of times it's like the ideas that you think are kind of not going to work anyways, but you try it out. And those are the ideas that work and end up making a big difference for everybody else if you're able to bring it to market and so on. So I think always keep experimenting, keep trying different things, and that's how innovation happens. So if you have ideas, I would say try them out and share them too. I don't know. Sometimes people get all worried that somebody else is going to steal their ideas and stuff like that. But everybody's kind of got their own take on it, and the more people work on something, the more chances are that somebody figures out the best way to use that idea. So I think sharing. I mean, and that's one thing I like about wing foiling, is that kind of collaboration and people having fun, kind of experimenting and trying new things. So Travis, if you have some ideas, try them out or share your ideas and let other people try them out. So John says, right on, I'll surf behind the boat and see how my bails are affected by the leash. So yeah, I mean, behind the boat, you probably don't want to use a leash, but it's, I guess, yeah, like you said, it's maybe a good way to test it out. Yeah, so the people that use a straight leash here in the surf, it's always a little bit longer than the board. Like, so let's say if you have a 5 foot board, then yeah, use at least like a 5 or 6 foot leash, a little bit longer than the board. But otherwise, yeah, if you have a straight leash, it's going to dangle behind you and kind of drag in the water. So you don't want to use a leash that's too long because it's just going to create more drag. At the same time, you don't want it to be too short because then it can be dangerous. It can also come back at you in the waves and so on. So that's kind of my take on that. Travis Glover says, I love that interview you did with Mark Rappaport. Yeah, he's a legend, you know, like here on Maui, he's just such an innovator, and definitely enjoy talking to him. And yeah, got more of those interviews coming up too. Those always are kind of take a long time to shoot and edit and so on, but that's like, I love talking to people and just hearing what people are up to, like the whole wing foiling world. I think there's kind of people just want more information, so I'm trying to get it, and for myself too, this learning from others, and everything's so new that there's still so much to learn and figure out. All right, so let's see. I think that's it. Did I have some more questions on the channel? I think that's all I had. So I hope that's cool. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. I really like that. You know, I'm interacting with people watching. It makes it way more interesting for me. That I know some people are watching, and it's not just talking to the camera. So, and then actually, quite a few people watch this show after it posts. You know, after the live show ends, it's basically just a regular video on YouTube that anybody can watch. So we'll keep doing that. But you know, like everyone, I'm going to keep doing this every Wednesday at the same time. So just remember the time right now where you are, at 7 a.m. here in Hawaii. So whatever time it is for you, just hope you can join me again next week, in 1 week, on next Wednesday, and we'll go over some more stuff here. Oh, Meshmello says, any experience with the gong hype? I have a 5.5 for 6 months now and loving it. So great to hear that. I personally actually haven't tried that board, but I have a friend, Fuzzy Jardine. He got one of those gong hype inflatable boards, and he said it actually worked really well. It felt pretty rigid, and he did sell it again. I think. Well, he said he got two, and he kept one, and he sold the other one. And he kept it for traveling, and I don't really see him using it anymore because I think he just likes the performance of the hardboards a little bit better. But I mean, he said definitely it's a totally legitimate foil board. So, you know, one of the problems with the foil boards is that you know, you don't want to have flex between the foil and the front foot. But I think because of that, they have that elongated box system on the bottom that basically makes the bottom more rigid. And kind of makes the part between your feet more rigid. So that, I think that seems pretty legit to me. You know, one thing you don't have on the inflatable boards is hard edges. So I would think the water release is a little bit slower. You know, has a little bit less release when you start going faster. But, you know, on wing foiling, that's really not so much of an issue because a lot of times your takeoff speed is below the planing speed anyway. So I think it's actually less of an issue in wing foiling than in other board sports. Like for surfing, you definitely want to have a hard edge on the back of your board for planing, but on a wing foil board, it's not as necessary. And then another interview I did with Gunnar, he said because it's so rounded, the rails are so rounded and soft, it's actually very forgiving. And he said it's actually inflatable board is the best one he used for landing flacas, where you kind of splash down and then turn the board around in the water. And because the rails are so rounded, it's very forgiving. And he said you can pretty much land it any way, and it'll just kind of come back around. So that was kind of interesting to me to hear that. So, but good to hear that you have good experience with it, Marshmallow. And I know Gong has, they came out with a lot of good equipment early on, and especially for the Europeans. Basically, his model is he buys it directly from the factory and then sells it consumer direct. So there's no middlemen involved. There's no distributors. There's no retail markup and so on. It's just like direct to consumer, factory to consumer, basically. And Gong is so that's how they can offer really good prices. And definitely Patrice is definitely an innovator and comes out with good stuff and this kind of is on the leading edge of the sport. So I think they came out with early on a lot of good videos, good designs. Like I think they're the only ones that make like 8-meter wings, or like they make these huge wings. So in very light winds, they have these super power big wings that look pretty cool. I've never tried those either. Personally, I find that once you get over a bigger size, it's almost like it's like diminishing returns because you can't get the wing as low to the water. You have to kind of hold it up over your head. So you need like more. The bigger the wing gets, the more power you need to get going because you can't direct the speed forward as well. So the biggest wings I like to use are like around 6 meters, and I don't really even want to try anything bigger. And most of the time, I use 5-meter or smaller if I can. So yeah, but Gong is definitely a cool company to check out. They make good stuff, and they ship worldwide, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, so I'm gonna wrap it up unless there's any more comments or questions. Yeah, I got 9 people watching. Please remember to give it a thumbs up, guys, down below. You should be able to just click the thumbs up button. I only see 2 right now, so I want to see some more thumbs up. Okay. All right. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope to see you again next Wednesday. And every Saturday morning, we're going to keep posting, and check out our video of the day, part of our video contest. That's always fun to see all the submissions. Yeah, if you have any fun videos to share, just send them in. I'll put the link down below too for the video submissions. So it's pretty easy. It's just like a Google Docs. You just upload it to Google, and then we put it on YouTube. So it's pretty simple, straightforward, and you can win $2,000. So don't miss that chance, and it's kind of a fun way to get your videos out there. Oh, I got another one from John. He says, "What is your ideal mast size for surfing?" So surfing is a relative term. For wing foiling in the surf, what I like to use is 90 centimeter mast. I use the Access 810 front wing right now, and then 90 centimeter mast. And I've tried all kinds of different lengths. For subfoil surfing and prone foil surfing, I'll go a little bit shorter usually. For one thing, it allows you to basically go over a little bit shallower water. Like if the water is not super high tide, a lot of times with a 90 centimeter mast, you end up dragging on the reef, going back out or hitting the reef when you're not up on the foil. So I use like a 65 or 70 centimeter, like 24-inch mast around that length for surfing usually. But for wing foiling, it's just like a lot of times you get this flying over chop, and it's just nice to have a longer mast because you can fly kind of level over the chop instead of having to move up and down with every little chop in the water. Because on a shorter mast, a lot of times you really have to follow the contour of the water, otherwise you're going to breach as you're coming over a chop, and then the flow comes out on the other side. So, and then also, riding in the surf, it just gives you a little bit more leeway on bigger waves. Like when we're tow foiling, it's usually in deeper water, and then the longer mast is not a problem. Like we'll go usually like with a 1 meter mast, like 100 centimeters. That seems to work really well. And for tow foiling, another thing about a long mast, sometimes when you're catching a wave, it just doesn't catch. Like the waves are small, the foil is so deep underneath the wave that it doesn't really catch that wave energy as well. So it takes like more speed to get up on a longer mast. That's why for wing foiling it works fine, because that's not a problem, because you got enough speed and pull from the wing. And toe foiling, it's not a problem to use a longer mast, but if you're just catching a wave, on a stand-up board or prone foiling, a shorter mast will just be easier to take off on. Okay, so yeah, Travis, take care. Robert, this was fun. I'll tune in again soon. That'd be great. Travis, yeah, hope to see you next week again. And John Light says, thanks, I'm breaching right when I feel like I'm getting a good glide. Yeah, so I mean, if that happens to you when you're wing foiling, then you could try a longer mast. That helps. But, sometimes in the beginning, it's actually better to start on a shorter mast, just because on a longer mast, you'll still end up breaching. If you're not good at controlling the altitude of the foil, you can still breach. It just keeps going up until you breach. And then with a long mast, you just have a longer way to fall down towards the water. And if you're going pretty fast, and you're like a meter off the water, plus, you're standing up on top of the board, that can be a pretty long fall. And then when you hit the water at high speeds, that can kind of hurt. So if you have a shorter mast, at least at least you have a shorter way to fall. So that seems to, and just the control of the foil, it feels more stable on a shorter mast. It's kind of like if you think of a unicycle, it's easier to ride a unicycle where you're right on top of the wheel versus one with like a long extension where you're standing 10 feet up and you have to balance on that. It's going to be a lot harder. So same thing, like a longer mast will just feel a little bit more tippy and less stable. So I hope that helps with the mast length. Phil F asked a quick question on low wind wing foiling. Okay, so we got one more question here. We'll do that. Low wind wing foiling. Is it true that the foil is unstable when the speed is low, or is it just me? So yeah, there's usually like when on any kind of any size foil, really, there's like this one, like there's like a certain speed that you kind of have to overcome before the foil really flies very stable. So I would say that is a common thing. Basically, a lot of times when you're lifting off, it kind of sometimes the foil wants to kind of wheelie, and you really have to push down the nose to get it to fly level and stable. So there's that certain moment where you can lift off, but you're at risk of either like overfoiling or stalling and then dropping back down. So you have to kind of, at that point, if you're kind of lifting up and you're kind of like doing that wheeling thing, you got to kind of push the nose down and accelerate. Basically, you want to go a little bit faster. There's like that low speed where the wing doesn't have quite enough lift, so you have to increase the angle of attack. But if the angle of attack is too steep, then you stall and come off the foil. So but sometimes it can be hard to get from that position into that level of flying position. So you really have to push down on the nose, accelerate, pull on the wing so the nose comes forward and you accelerate. And then every foil, depending on the size of the foil and the thickness of the profile, it has kind of a certain speed it likes to fly at. So on a really thin, small wing, you kind of want to fly at a much higher speed than on a really big, thick wing that likes to fly at a lower speed. So you got to kind of find that speed where the foil flies well. And then, if you're as a beginner, usually you want to start on a big foil that's nice and stable, has a thick profile. It comes up out of the water early. It has a lot of initial lift and so on. But at the same time, you can't make that thing go too fast. So you don't want to push the speed up. You can go up to a certain speed and just don't go up faster than that, because that's when it's going to be impossible to keep the foil in the water at a higher speed. So, okay, Phil says, also in terms of left-right stability. So the left-right, so a lot of people, they get up on the foil and then the whole thing tips over to the left or the right. So that, I would say, a lot of times it's not just the stability of the foil itself, but it's also your foot positioning. So if your weight is not centered exactly over the center of the board, the board is going to tip over and it's going to be very hard to adjust it. And at that point, if you're feeling the board tipping sideways, left or right, and that means probably that your weight isn't centered over the center of the board, that's the moment you should bail. As soon as you feel that thing tipping, just jump off the board. Don't try to save it. Like that's one of the big mistakes that beginner make coming from other water sports. Usually, like when you're surfing, you try to like catch yourself until you hit the water. Same thing in windsurfing or whatever. And a lot of times you can pull off something, even though you've lost your balance, you can still pull it off by kind of just toughing it out and then kind of pushing through it and kind of hacking it, you know. But in foiling, if you start to tip and you don't bail, then what happens is you hit the foil, and the foil comes towards you, and you know, either in the back of your head or in the front. So it's very dangerous. So you don't want to, like, if you're losing the balance, if you're not like right on top of the foil and you're losing that balance, then you got to just bail out right away and don't try to catch yourself. So that's where people get hurt in the beginning, is because they don't bail quick enough. So, and in terms of tips on balancing your weights, like if this is your board, a lot of times beginners will be like not right on the center line of the board, but like slightly off, like have the front foot kind of off to the left and the back foot a little bit off to the right. For regular footers, or opposite, So instead of being right along the center line of the board, they'll be slightly like this, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And in the beginning, it feels right. I did that as well. But you just have to make sure if your front foot is off to the side a little bit, your back foot has to kind of be off on the other side of it towards the rail. So that way you still have your weight right over the center of the foil. So it's really important to have your weight right over the center of the foil. And for me, I always ride both feet right on the center line of the board now. So if this is the center line of the board, I got both feet on the board and not like in that diagonal stance. And I find for like surfing and stuff, it's just easier. Also, if you put your weight from the front foot to the back foot, you're always right over the center line, and you don't I think it's harder for surfing and so on. If you have the right foot off, the front foot off to the side, and you lean forward, then you'll put pressure kind of more on one side of the foil than on the other side. So yeah, that's my take on it. I hope that makes sense. Having your weight centered right over the foil, and basically if you feel the foil coming up and you don't have your weight right over the center of the foil, it's better to just bail out and start over again, because it's very hard to adjust your stance once you're up on the foil, and especially when you're starting out. It's not impossible, but that's how people get hurt if they try to save themselves when the board's when the foil's starting to come at them. So that's the time to bail out quickly and not try to save it. Hope that's some good advice. Thanks so much, Robert. You are very generous with your advice. So happy to do that. And I'm glad I'm getting questions here online, so it makes it more fun and entertaining and more interactive. So appreciate everyone's time. And if you're watching, don't forget to click that thumbs up button, please. We got 5 thumbs up, 10 people watching right now, so good to see that. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and we'll be back next Wednesday. So if you have any questions, write them down, and happy to go over it next time. And also questions on the channel. Like if you watch a video and you have a question, just post it on the channel, and I'll respond to it on this live show if it's too long to respond to in a few words. So that's kind of why I started the show too. It's just easier to talk about it than to write long answers online. So I'll keep doing that. So thanks again for everyone. Thanks for watching. Aloha from Hawaii. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next Wednesday. Ciao.